following material is copyright 2021 by Higher Alignment and Alignment Technologies. All reproduction and distribution are strictly prohibited without prior written consent. For more information, please contact us at higheralignment.com. Welcome to Higher Alignment and tonight's free introductory class on Radiant Self Unifying Love. Tonight, our discussion is on the problem of falling in love, identifying the codependent costs of personality, attractions, and love, with Larry Byram, Tom Fagiano, and Sandy Jacob.
Okay, everyone. We're really here to answer your questions and to provide a framework for understanding why it is we have such difficult times choosing the right partners. And it's really interesting that this is such an ongoing thing that we're talking about this. And it's been now about, probably about 25 years since I've been talking about this. So I keep having to remind myself that I was once where you were sitting, not understanding what is the problems with why we're attracted to what we're attracted to. And when I do that, I start realizing how far we've come. We know so much more than we did way back then about all the ways to validate and understand our lessons. And if we understood our lessons, we'd be able to transform our attractions so that the attractions that are misguiding us wouldn't be leading us by the nose to the wrong people. And what we do have right now is we have a codependent attraction framework usually that is guaranteeing that we're being with the worst possible people. Isn't that great to know? Worst possible people. Because not only are we not seen for who we are, we're typically find ourselves in relationships where the pains of our past keep repeating, and we keep getting hurt the same way. Either we're abandoned or we're otherwise diminished, I guess I want to say, in the relationship, or defeated in the relationship. And that's gotten to be an old program that we need to start erasing, start handling. And I'm going to suggest that the answers to what we're talking about are all in tonight's presentation. And I'm being bold in that way because, I don't want to waste people's time. If people can comprehend what we're talking about, we'll really answer your questions why you're in relationships that are not working for you. And if we can own our creative nature, it makes it so much easier to be abundant and be able to attract people that can see us and people that are more like us. Now, before I get into the more like us part of the program, let's just talk about why you're attracted to all the people that are not like us. We're attracted to that because we're in a discovery phase, a growth phase. And a lot of times we grow up in households that there wasn't a lot of love in the house and between the parents. And if it was, it got lost a long time ago. So what ends up happening is we don't get exposed to who we are and how we could be seen. In fact, one of the biggest issues I find in my coaching work is that people aren't used to be seen. So when they are seen, it really moves them. It moves them to tears. It moves them to joy. It moves them to, ecstatic experiences. Just being seen. It shouldn't be such a big problem, but it is in our society because we're not seen and we're not valued for who we are. So I'm going to be talking about that tonight, and you guys are completely welcome to interrupt anything in any way, because that's where the best questions come out. And just to let you know, Tom and Sandy are going to jump in here at various times, and I encourage them to do it as much as they like, because we're not here to really just download a lot of information into you. We're here to make this more of an experience. and to have some interaction. And so we're going to be a little more humorous about the process, because it is very ironic that we find ourselves attracted to the very things that we're trying to learn, and yet we can't seem to get the lesson. Everybody kind of understand that? It's like the lesson that we're trying to get our hands around seems to slip through our fingers each time. Okay. Any questions before I start? Okay. So we've done our basic thing where we asked you to put your numbers and everything there. In most of our classes, we use that to help identify which people could best match with other people. But we don't have to worry about that tonight too much. We're going to do a process tonight but we could do a process tonight, but it isn't obligation. It isn't an obligation type process. It's just a suggested process. Okay. Sandy?
Why do we fall in love? We fall in love because we exceed our ability to see love as it is. There are three dimensions: energy, intent, time, content, and space, context, required to fully appreciate love.
So a lot of people ask me why we're calling these dimensions, and they're just frameworks where we get attached to our attractions on the instinctive level, on the intellectual level, or the idealized level. And then we proceed to get entangled in the problems of each one of those levels. And you can do more than one level at a time. In fact, you can really be choosing people with extremely complex reasons and have lots of boxes checked initially when you choose a person. And yet you'll find that this requires you to solve more problems simultaneously than you may be able to do. In fact, it may be the reason why you would swear off relationships, or I can't deal with this, I'm going to take a break for the next 5 years. Anybody doing that, it's a normal thing, because we run into the obstacles of our own understanding of the situation. And I would say to you, this work is not just for romantic partners. I would say that this work is in our friendships, in our business relationships, it's everywhere. We want to have better relationships, period. And people fall into various types of bromances or womances. I've heard now a new term, and various types of situations where we want to believe in another person, and yet we get caught up in the lessons around it, which limits our ability to be seen by them, and then we get in trouble because of it. So it's much wider framework than you normally talk about. Sandy?
By not being able to see these dimensions, love is perceived as risky, unsafe, and promotes insecurity. Hence the out of control moniker of falling.
So the idea of falling means we're out of control. The idea of falling means that we're losing ourselves in our partner. It also is telling us that we're also becoming possibly codependent if we're agreeing to the falling is the loving part. So if we're agreeing that being out of control is the love, then we are in probably a codependent relationship. Now, a codependent relationship is not a disaster. It doesn't have to be. It only becomes a disaster when we refuse to acknowledge that we're building dependencies in the relationship and we're trying to have our partners take care of us. If we own that and we acknowledge what we're doing and we're still building and growing in our own way, then we can win that battle and not be codependent. Does everybody understand that? In other words, if I understand that I have a tendency to over rely on somebody in a certain way, and they're getting restless because I'm counting on them to take care of me in a certain way, then what I typically, what a lot of people typically do is they actually come up with a way where they want the other person to be dependent on them. Now that creates more entanglement. Now, the other direction would be, if I acknowledge, I've been doing this, I'm going to work with you. So I'm not counting on you to do that. And I'm going to learn what I need to learn there to take care of that area of my business. And so it doesn't become something that you need to take care of me around. Now, that would be a way of growing in our personal autonomy. So we don't need the codependent attractions defining us. But if I'm feeling more and more at the effect of the partner, or I'm defining myself in terms of the partner more, then I'm getting more locked into the codependency. And that is the problem. Okay. Sandy?
We are often attracted to a version of love that is identified with our fears, needs, and personality desires.
So one of the things here is a lot of us are fearful that we're either going to lose ourselves in a relationship, or we're going to lose the relationship, and therefore we won't have someone being there for us. And so we want a connection no matter what. That's a fear-driven relationship. The needs-based relationship is, I need my partner to be there because there's certain things I expect in my life. And I know if I had a partner there, it'd be more fun to have them do things with. And then the more I'm doing that, the more I get locked into different ways of interacting that are codependent. It's a needs-based relationship. And it's also a lot of times about a mutual goal. Like if we say we want to get married and buy a house, the goal becomes, we're trying to build the process of the house, and we focus on the house and we don't focus on the relationship. Well, that's going to be a problem too. Okay. And then the last one is personality desires. And people have the biggest problem with this because I would say we can define our personality desires, but many people feel at the effect of their own desire. They think if they have a desire, they need to act it out. And I would just tell you that if you're going to act out every personality desire you have, you won't ever end anywhere that you want to be, because you'll be just constantly defined by that process. You want to shape your desires. You want to make sure your desires are something that are fulfilling to you and ultimately fulfilling to other people, because that would make them transpersonal and that would make them more conscious. Just having personality desires usually promotes separative action, and it's mostly used to get what you want at the cost of others. So, if you're looking at the relationship as an investment, a bank, and you put in certain deposits and you want to be able to go take those deposits out when you want, you've made the whole process very transactional, and that's going to be difficult to count on when there's a run on the bank. Okay. Sandy?
Yeah, I was going to say it even becomes transactional when you try to too closely define what one person gives and then what another person gives, even if it's not a money type of thing.
Exactly. I would say that just in the definition of each other, in terms of each other, you're beginning to sink into the morass of a codependent relationship there, because you're losing your sense of self. Your creative self is being submerged, which isn't what we want. Okay.
By opening ourselves up, we initiate new levels of growth that help as long as we do not become attached to the compromise. Our creative wholeness eventually promotes choice.
So is everybody here following what we're calling falling in love?
And so that's what you mean by the compromise, right, Larry? The falling in love part?
Yes. The compromise is that we give ourselves over to the other person and we define ourselves in terms of what we think we need to do to please them at the cost of what is appropriate for us. That's always the compromise.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
This is Todd. You just mentioned something I think you said defining the relationship.
Yes.
Like, is that when, say, like you want to be really clear, like this is what the type of relationship we are gonna do, and it needs to be like this. Like,
Yeah, you're really good at that. I agree. So let me just say to you that sometimes that's a setup. And what I mean by that is that people, even if you're really clear, Ty, and this is what you've been using to try to clarify what you want the relationship to be, where you want to go, and it is helpful for you to be clear about that. I'm not disputing that at all. But unfortunately, what it does for people that have no boundaries is it gives them permission to kind of define themselves in terms of what you are offering, and then really just be reactive or passive or dealing with inertia all the time. It's feeling like you're always trying to drag them along because they become baggage in that situation because they're not really defined themselves and they're not really clear what they want. And so they're constantly using you to try to help them clarify that. And that becomes work for you, even though you tried to define it very clearly so you wouldn't be taking care of them, in other words. Does that make sense when I say it that way? So let me say a little bit more because you don't look like you're convinced that I communicated. A lot of people, in fact, growing up, let's just use you for a moment. Growing up, you were really against initially a lot of structure in a relationship. A lot of, well, you do this for me, I do this for you. This is how we do the exchange. You were against that because you wanted to be more spontaneous when you're younger. Now, what happened is that over time, you found people didn't want the same things you wanted. And you realized that if they didn't want the same things, you had to be clear about what you wanted so they can make a choice whether they wanted to be with you again or on an ongoing basis. And so you became more clear about your boundaries and about what worked for you over time. Does that make sense? But the more clear you are, the more you attract people that are the opposite of you. And so what happens is you become a victim of the process that you initially had yourself. It's like people go back and forth. If you have no boundaries, then you are attracted to people with boundaries. If you have a lot of boundaries, people that have no boundaries are attracted to you. So what ends up happening is it becomes more self-fulfilling prophecy about trying to get something that you can't really seem to get. Now, if I were you, Ty, I would be in the middle ground. I'd be right in the middle ground. And I would say, look, I don't want to define a lot, but I will say, this is the direction I'm going. Are you interested in going this direction right now? And then as it goes, let's see where that can emerge or how that can emerge or what natural tools we develop or how we can cooperate or even how we can commune together energetically. You got it? Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a good example of persevering. We could use people persevering in their questions to make sure that I've caught the whole question and I can respond to it because I'm pretty sure I can. So, Sandy?
I thought what was interesting there, Larry, is that Ty, by trying to move from a more fluid and flexible place, he actually created another problem.
Yes. People frequently have one problem in one dimension, then they, through a period of time, they gravitate to the other side of the equation, and then they now attract people with the other side of the problem. That is good.
One thing, like in my experience, not just like it would be business partners too, and
Yep.
and it just seemed like in general, if we be really vague with it, we're on the same page, we want the same things. But then when it gets further along, then it's like, wow, we're very different. We want very different things. And there's like so much clash and challenge and conflict.
Yes, I would agree with you. good.
So part of what we're discussing is how to get to the balanced place. Yes?
Yes, yes. We would like to get to a place where we're in the middle. If you had to say what the value of the higher alignment work is to see all the possibilities and operate from the middle path. See all the possibilities and operate from the middle path. That gives you the most flexibility and it allows you to respond to things the most. And therefore you can define and change things as much as you want. It's not like a problem. Now, in our society, there's a lot of people that don't want change. We're afraid of change in our society. About 60% of the population cannot generate their own change. So if you look at that, then what you find here is that, you know, people in that situation are always trying to have a structured situation so they can game the system, at least so that they can feel like they can perform to it. If nothing else, they can, if it's even better, they can control it or manipulate it. That would even be better. But they always try to do it at least at that level. Okay, I'm talking about on a personality level. Okay.
Falling in love instinctively. Sexual chemistry based on appearance. Instinctive falling in love compromises our natural life expression by trying to fit into the expectations of others.
So there's a burden whenever you're in an instinctively defined rate, there's a burden. The burden is, are you the right person for me? And if so, you believe what I believe. And if so, you then would respond the way I would expect you to. And if you don't respond the way, then I'm wondering what's going on with you, because we thought we were on the same path and we thought we were doing the same thing. Okay.
When we do not acknowledge our inner creative nature, we become attracted to outer beauty and handsomeness as a way to compensate.
It's because we don't know what to do with inner beauty that we end up seeking outer beauty. It's like if we're denying ourselves, we go to the area where we can control. We can't control the inner beauty, and so we almost deny it exists. So, but we can control how we look, and we can control who we choose, you know, from an appearance level. And then we get fixated on those appearances and making them work.
Even our pursuit of safety traps us in relationships that isolate and disconnect us.
So the ironic thing about this is that we're always thinking that the person that's beautiful or that fits our picture or is our type is a safe choice. I've had people say to me, well, she's blonde, so of course she's attractive. And I would say to them, well, what does that mean to you? And they would say, oh, blonde means cuddly. Blonde means cuddly to this person. And I would say, oh, blonde means cuddly, then you've always had cuddly partners. And he was thinking about that for about 3 or 4 minutes. And he says, I can't remember one cuddly partner I've had. I said, yeah, but they've all been blonde. They've all been blonde. And he says, that puzzles me, because in his mind, he had created that reality, even though that wasn't the truth of the situation. Everybody know what I'm talking about? You create a picture of something in your mind, you make an association to it, you never question the association, you just go for the outcome, the externalized thing. And then what happens is you get a lot of those areas where you're looking for the wrong type of partner because you're misguided in what you're looking for. Okay, but that gives you an idea. And the other thing I want to say here is that the core issue on the instinctive level is the imbalances between the sensations and feelings. And those imbalances agitate us, and they create a need for excitement because we're so disconnected from ourselves. And the more we're denying our life energy and our creativity, the more disconnected we are. That means we are more susceptible to become addicted, even to people, but to drugs, to other things. We have an addiction proclivity because of incomplete things on the instinctive level. And that should tell you a lot more than just about choosing a good partner. There's all these things about being healthy by honoring our full energy rather than, being lost in an idea of who we should be and how we should show up. Okay.
Larry, this
Yeah.
issue reminds me of, the statistic that says that the taller a man is, the more successful he is. Now, logically, by being taller, you're not smarter or more competent, but the tallness causes people on an instinctive level to treat these people differently.
Yes.
More breaks, anticipate them being successful, cutting them slack when they make mistakes. And
Yes.
so you can see that self-fulfilling prophecy of what goes on this instinctive level for us.
I know. And I would just go a step further there. And I would say that the real issue is that people aren't willing to confront what it means to be with a human being. So I would say looking at the inner beauty of a person is a better indicator of their capacity to be in a relationship than the outer aspect of them. Now, we're attracted to the outer aspect of people because we want our sex to be easy. And that's really because we want our relationships to be simple. And as long as we have a simple sexual partner that is there when we need them, we could be happy in many people's minds. Now, I'm going to say that defeats the whole purpose of us getting to know ourselves and getting to know other people. We really have to go beyond the outer facade and go to the deeper truth. And that's the lesson of life. If we're not accepting our own life energy, then how can we see others in their life energy? And so I would tell you that most people are overwhelmed by, quote, the idea of beauty. They externalize external beauty, but they cannot take any internal beauty. So when you go to, when I go with people to art galleries and everything, it doesn't matter what they're looking at. They have limited capacity to see the beauty and the inner beauty of the situation. They are overwhelmed by the inner beauty if it's too obvious, and they become more jaded or turned off or unavailable to themselves in that situation. That tells you how unevolved they are in their ability to see themselves. Okay.
Larry, I have a question.
Sure.
When you were talking about the instinctive level and that there were things on the instinctive level, what else is on the instinctive level besides the sexuality?
Well, I would say the real thing that's there is us having being willing to assert ourselves and to take risk in service of some higher goal, creative goal, hopefully, or being willing to explore new things. That the adventure and the aliveness are the things that we want to be there. But many people are scared of both of those. And when they're scared of both of those, they fall into the pattern of excitement, and the excitement triggers them into choosing partners that are more like their parents. And everybody knows those kind of relationships are difficult to manage. Why? Because you're not only dealing with your relationship with your partner, you're dealing with the relationship to your parents and your partner simultaneously. So however you treat them and however they react, if it's similar to your parents, it becomes a double whammy, and you're really knocked around or knocked off your feet, or you keep thinking that your imprinting is going to save you. You keep thinking that your way of distancing from your parents is going to work. It isn't. That's why these lower level instinctive relationships are mostly short. Why? Because the expectations that the other person is going to be there with us gets broken fairly quick. The entrancement gets broken fairly quickly because we realize they're not there to make us. They're not a better version of our parents, or even if they are a better version, we don't really need a better version of our parents. Maybe we don't need another mom or dad. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we can go without that. That would be useful. If you're in a partnership, it'd be nice to be a partnership with the person, not with their parents. Anyway, you get the idea. Or with our own parents.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. On the instinctive level, is that where the excitement and the idealization, it's like on that level is?
No, the idealization's on the third level.
Okay.
This one, it's all about objectification. People make judgments about your appearance. It's always about judgments of appearance. And it's a way to rank people when you don't have to be conscious. You know, like Sandy was talking about tall men have an advantage. If you add tall white men, you know, man, you're starting to get up there into a preferential situation where they can do anything they want. And small Black women, what are they going to do? You know, they're not going to get seen well at all. So, and that's the cost of objectification. Why? Because we have assumptions about what that means to us in terms of success or in terms of what we think is going to work for us. And it's never the truth. It's always it's always a delusion that we've gotten caught in there. It's always something that we didn't give an opportunity to other people, or we didn't give an opportunity to ourselves to exceed other people's expectations, or we didn't give them a chance to say no to us because we didn't put ourselves out there. So there are all these people walking around right now going, the world doesn't see me, and I'm a victim of that. And so I'm in trouble because of that, and I just don't expect anything to go better. Now, as long as we keep doing that and don't take any adventurous risk, then we're going to continue to be in that. So we have to take some new risk and do some new things to get seen sometimes. That would be helpful.
Well, and the irony is that a lot of times when we're in that despairing place, we hide more rather than going more into our authentic creativity to be seen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and the hiding more means we're doing our imprinting.
Right.
We're doing what we expect other people want us to be, and how we got acceptance in an indirect way that actually pisses people off. It irritates people when we do our imprinting, and they don't talk about it, but they just kind of run away, and then we're alone. Not very cool.
So Katrina, I would add a couple of other things about what you're asking, what's on the instinctive level. So instinctive level is also about searching for safety. And so one of the things that we do is just like habitual activities, or having your house set up a certain way, or going the same route everywhere you go. All of those kind of instinctive habitual things that make us think that we're more stable and safe are part of that instinctive level as well.
To be honest, Katrina, if you go deeper into this whole problem, you'll find out that the more possessions we have, the less life force we demonstrate in our life, because we're investing ourselves in what we own or what our possessions are. And by being invested in stuff, we diminish ourselves and our own aliveness. And so what we want to do is have the appropriate degree of stuff around us so we're not overwhelmed by that. So if we're creating clear spaces, and a lot of the inventors really know this, you need to have room to breathe. You need to have room to be yourself. And if you have all this stuff you're connected to, it just smothers you. You just basically don't have any juice. Okay.
Hey, Larry, it might be helpful to clarify what you mean by risk, because there's risky behavior on this level, and it's not the same.
Good point.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, so what Tom is bringing up is that there is people that are addicts, you know, they're addicted, and they are disconnected from themselves. And the only way to amp up their high to the adrenaline is to make riskier choices. That's one form of risk I'm not talking about. The real form of risk that I'm talking about is expressing or doing things to forward your creative nature so that you know who you are more. So you have clearer boundaries about what works and doesn't work for you. Now that is a risk worth taking, because you're always learning, and there's nothing extraneous in that, because everything you learn that doesn't work, you now apply to your situation and move forward based on that. Now, in those risky things, those people were trying to scare themselves into aliveness. They were trying to scare themselves into aliveness. Unfortunately, that doesn't work very well, and a lot of them die along the process. But, you know, I guess they had to go. That's all I can say. Okay. So where are we at?
We're on loneliness.
Okay, that's good.
Our loneliness drives us to seek sexual connections that are exciting to distract us from the fact that they are not fulfilling. Familiarity makes it more likely that we will choose parental patterns in our partners, where we attempt to remake our relationship possibilities.
Yeah, so the familiarity is, there's, you know, one of the things we would talk about is, in our work, we say there's 343 unique creative combinations of intelligences or expressions. 343, that's a lot of different combinations that you can be. Now here's the problem. When I talk to people and I engage people, even though they're the most conscious people around, they're usually only dealing with maybe 5 different combination types, because those are the ones that are familiar to them. It usually deals with their parents, maybe their grandparents, maybe the brothers, or a brother or a sister. And those become the people that they choose as, they choose for relationships, or they choose as bosses, or they choose as subordinates. They fill their life up with the same kind of combinations. I've seen people that have had 20 relationships, and it's all one single combination. Same one, all 20 relationships. I mean, what is the odds of that in the world? When there are 343 different combinations, and people can go and in the most outrageous locations find that many people that fit exactly the parental pattern that they have. Isn't that amazing?
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
I recently got in contact with my 6th grade boyfriend,
Yeah.
and he was a parental pattern.
Yes.
Sixth grade.
Right. And that's because of the familiarity pattern. You thought you knew something about them, you could project on them, you would at least understand, even if it was different from you, you at least understand what's different to some degree about them. And you would probably underestimate the problem of it. Why? Because you would have hope that you're going to be better with this one than your parents, and you underestimate because you make allowances for, oh, they're just doing that, they're just doing this, I understand what that is, so it's okay. But then when you get in the relationship, you realize, hey, that's not okay. That's been my life story. I'm having all these people that are not connecting.
So let's go ahead with this slide. We fixate on excitement and false, projected, exalted physical qualities because we believe this person represents a better version of our parents. When they do not meet our expectations, we lose interest. What keeps us coming back is having some sexual connection. And I guess it would be worth talking just for a moment here about the fact that one of the premises of higher alignment is that our relationships are best when we're in partnership with people who are like us. And for the most part, our parents probably are not our same creative pattern. So when Larry talks about it not being a good thing to date your parents, it's not only because of the relationship that we have with our parents that may be complicated and not worked out yet. It's because those are probably not the people that are best for us in terms of expressing the most creativity and connection we can in our partnerships and relationships.
So Sandy, what you were saying, it's more that we choose our parental patterns because it's familiar
Right.
and not necessarily compatible.
Right. And I think a lot of times we do it because we think it's safe, and it's safe out of familiarity. You know, given the many stories I hear about people and their relationships with their parents, it really isn't that they think that their relationships with their parents were safe. You know, they felt often very hurt and dismissed by those relationships. But it's familiar, we know it. We just recognize it so quickly that it's not even a thought. It's just like, oh, I'm home. I belong here. And then you realize that it's just a pattern that doesn't really work well for you.
Actually, this is kind of exemplified in the Tinder application, because people who are in Tinder, they're swiping left and right based completely almost on the way somebody looks. Or he's back.
Well, I would guess, Tom, also that it's not just how somebody looks, but it's probably that same familiarity issue, right?
It definitely could be that. It's definitely partly that, yes. Because they're really good at reading their imprinting.
So Larry, we finished off the core part of the slide. I thought I'd go to the side parts so you could
Okay.
discuss those. Unbalanced sensations and feelings drive excitement, familiarity, and parental pattern choices. Role-playing, boredom, and irritation about expectations promote isolation and fear of loss. Falling in love with our attraction type guarantees that our conditioning will be reinforced, and after 3 to 7 years, our attractions will change.
Okay. Is that it for that?
That's it for this slide.
Great. Anybody have any questions about the instinctive level? You know, I guess I want to summarize the basic thing of the instinctive level is that our attractions block us from actually choosing people that would be good for us creatively, because we have a particular distorted view about how we're supposed to be. And then we're expecting other people to have that same kind of distortion because we're attracting people that match our distortion. So there's the problem. Okay.
So Larry, I have one more question.
Sure.
So it just seems to me on the instinctive level is not a healthy level to choose from. Like, just don't choose from this level.
Yeah, well, let me just say this to you. When we get to the top level, what we're doing is we're integrating the true part of all the levels. And so we're operating from the instinctive level as life expression. We're operating from the second level as truth expression, where there's a positive view of each one of these that compound the value of what we're doing in a relationship. But when we're caught in the codependent program, we're locked into a situation where we're distorted and we're attracting distorted people, and that combination just makes it worse. And it limits the options that we can choose. So we don't even see the things that are possible in that particular level. Okay. Thank you for the question, Katrina.
Angela has a question too. Thanks, Katrina.
Hey, so this instinctual level, before we move on, my question has to do with how we relate to our instincts with our bodies. You know, what we smell, kind of what we taste, what we might engage or resonate with on a body level. And how, I guess what's challenging me at the moment is that I feel a lot of confidence or a lot of trust in how my body perceives things in my own felt sense perception. So I really trust it to guide me in my life and with people. Go ahead. Is this the positive side of instinct, or how would you frame that?
Yeah. So let me just say that I have a whole nother discussion on the modalities and how that comes in. I would have to say that the instinctive does contain, it is the container for our senses, and that's what you're referring to, Angela. The problem is that we may have access to different sensory information, but we bias what is going on there by not being in balance between our sensations and our feelings. If our sensations and feelings are out of whack, then we're not totally allowing all the experience of our ourselves on the instinctive level to be appreciated. That's what I'm going to say. So there are a lot of people out there that are really not able to access their full range of senses well, and it kind of warps their perception of what's going on. Now, on the other side of this equation, when we get balanced in the sensations and the feelings, and the feelings are the reflections of the sensations, by the way, they have to be. So it's our perception of the experience is the feeling, but our experience itself is a sensation. And there's always a subjective side and an objective side. The sensations are the objective side. The feelings are the subjective side. But they're both integral to making our experience whole. And that's what we're doing. In each level of our relationship, we have to make ourselves whole. And by making ourselves whole, we're no longer limited by our conditioning. That means that we can show up fully alive in that way. And being alive, we can share our aliveness with another and not be thrown off. Now, every time that you're in a situation where your conditioning is thrown off your balance in terms of your sensations and feelings, you can't share aliveness with other people. You're really stuck in excitement, and you can't even share excitement with other people well, because it's a singular experience. It's a one-sided experience. So that's how I would explain that. Does that make sense to you, Angela?
It does. I think what I'm left with is that the more we're in conscious, or what I'm left to think on is the more we're in conscious relationship to our bodies and our sensations and feelings, the more clear we are about choices we're making.
Yes,
and
and I'll add that to that. When we have partners that can connect with us and aren't in charge of their conditioning, we perceive ourselves in one dimension and we perceive our partners in another dimension. We can share dimensionality in that situation and expand our own view of ourselves. And in that way, we are enriched by having a relationship that's consciously connecting with us through aliveness. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I get it. Yep. My husband has a lot of fluidity, and he has a lot of consciousness and fun around him. A lot of, so that I get it. Thank you.
So Angela, you have a really rich sensation experience. Your partner has a very rich feeling experience. And if he's got enough sensation to really amplify his feelings, if you have enough feelings to amplify your sensations, you bridge that gap, you come into more unity there, and it's aliveness provoking for both of you. And that's what you want.
Yep, I'd say that's true. Yep. Thanks, Larry.
Yes.
Ty had a question, I think.
Yeah, like following up with the body stuff. Like I have an experience, I often have this recurring experience when I end up like on a first date with like, say something similar to my mother pattern. And I'll get a lot of butterflies. I'll get really nervous. I'll start sweating and I'll just get this rush and pretty much like leave my body almost. And that, like, I've called that like, that's normal. That's a first date. That's what I can expect.
Yes. That's a shutdown program. So
yeah, that doesn't, like when I've gone out with people more my energy, like it's much more calm much more peaceful, and
That was a
And-
great description of excitement, actually, Ty.
It
yeah,
is.
the excitement isn't there, and I'm like, I wonder, like, well, is this relationship gonna be any fun?
Okay, good. So here's my point. The calm relationships are always more fun. The exciting relationships are always pain in the ass, and you go down the tubes and you have to keep investing in it to get anything out of it, and it always has a diminishing return. Okay, so you're struggling with that. You're not with the aliveness. You're growing together. That is the difference there.
So the excitement is like adrenaline behavior. You have to keep doing more and more of it to get the same charge, right?
Yes, exactly.
And the butterflies is that nervousness is a sign, like my body's telling me a sign, but I'm misinterpreting it.
Yeah, you're
that's the falling
interpreting-
part.
Yeah, that's the falling part, and you're out of control, and it's okay. But what you want to do is just breathe into it, be with it, and so you can use it to move forward. I always use those things as a way to engage more, not hide out more. Okay.
Okay, Larry. So since we're on the sensation level, I think I have to ask one more question.
Okay.
So I often hear people say, gosh, you smell so good. People use smell as a basis for selection.
Yes. They're really talking about pheromones, and they're really talking about the degree of fear that people have. Because you see, if you like a person's smell, they have the same amount of fear that you do. That's what it really is. So, so if you don't like their fear, if you don't like their smell, then you have either more fear or less fear than them, and it's a signal. Okay, just to let you know. Okay,
Great. I just wanted to debunk that one.
thank you.
Wait, I'm like freaking out over that. That sounds crazy. That's it? That's pheromones?
Yes, that's what pheromones are. They're telling you the degree of fear you have, and people interpret that in terms of an excitement scale. But what they're really doing is calibrating to the other person's desire for them. And they are always, and so that's why they're thinking excitement means that it's part of the setup. Excitement means that the other person's engaged in you. No, excitement means that they're engaged in themselves and they're fixated on you. Now, that doesn't mean they're being with you. In fact, they're very isolated from you is the real problem there. And pheromones are just reinforcement behavior should you want to opt out, So it's there to keep you engaged long enough to get sexual. That's really what it's about. So we have these biological indicators that help procreate, help us procreate as a race. And there's a lot of factors we go unconscious about when we're doing them in an instinctive pattern. And if I had more time, I would go through the whole instinctive pattern and what's really going on. But we've just given you a little bit of an idea of how much we don't know about this. We don't seem to have learned very much. Okay. Are we ready to move ahead? We got to move ahead sometime. Okay.
Falling in love intellectually. Defensive chemistry based on opposition. Intellectual falling in love is based on the challenge of taming or subduing our partner so they will work to fulfill our goals. By identifying with our emotions or thoughts, we create opposing positions where, for a period of time, we think that we have the upper hand. Unfortunately, our desire for security unintentionally creates separation and the inability to work together. This is because no one can agree about what is the truth. What both partners are seeking is independence, but because they are oppositional, they get codependence.
So I guess I want to say a few things here just to know when we have this opposite attraction model in play, we're being challenged to keep up with our partner. We're being challenged to kind of show we're better than our partner. Where there's this unconscious competition going on. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like they provoke us. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to move to keep up. I have to do things to keep up. I have to keep on the conversation. And so a lot of people say, well, that's stimulating, that's good for the relationship. No, it's not good because it burns us out. It's not good because we're not relaxing with each other. It's not good because we're not creating solutions together. It's not good because we're more separative than ever, because we're defining walls between us so we can survive to being around each other. Anybody know what I'm talking about there? Okay, few people. Okay, so go ahead, Sandy.
I would say I find in those relationships that one of the things that gets to be really old is that there's always a battle for who wins and who loses. And it's really tiring to be in a relationship where somebody always wants you to be wrong or to lose,
Yes.
as opposed to be able to share. And I find that wears thin very quickly.
Yeah. More than that, what happens is that there's this long-term program of, you're supposed to stay with me. You're supposed to keep, tuned in to me. And if I don't get enough attention, then I'm going to, zap you. And I have the right to zap you because, you're going off on your own. So there's this subjectification of the other person to try to get them to believe what you're trying to prove. And if they don't buy into your game, then you have to find ways to get them to buy into your game. And it's a constant struggle. Okay.
Initially, they cannot see the codependence because they are fascinated by how well they fit with each other.
And they do in a codependent way. There's always whatever the person considers strong, they put that forth and they hide and discount whatever they deny in themselves. And then, or they feel weak about. And then the other person does the same thing. So they both have their strengths. And because they're in an opposite attraction model, they think, oh, together we complete each other. We are great together because we have a whole human being between us. This is the core issue of codependence. And it's a total lie because it just keeps us down, keeps us beaten up, keeps us from being able to grow beyond this. That's the problem. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Eventually, it becomes clear that each individual constructs a wall around their own reality and consciously undermines their partner's ability to do what they do well.
Because here's the ironic thing, we don't want our partner to get too important or to exceed us. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. We want to make sure they stay with us and that we have an equal kind of framework, but we don't want to be really equal. We want to be better, but we don't want them to argue with us. So we pretend to be kind of equal. That's really what ends up happening. But one person usually has more power than the other, and they always end up leveraging that power over the other. And that's always the problem. There's always power struggles underneath this type of relationship. There's always arguments that don't get resolved. There's not an acceptance of the other person being different. That is the disaster. If the other person can't be different and you're always trying to measure each other on the same scale and you are different, you can't win. There's no way to win in this situation. Okay.
Well,
Anybody been in this kind of relationship? A few people been in this kind of relationship? Okay.
So sometimes they have more power and sometimes they just have more persistence.
Yes.
Like a dog nipping at your heels all the time, right?
Yes, and some people really get off on the persistence part, They just go, well, I'm going to get you. I'm really going to get you. And they're stubborn. They're very stubborn. They just keep going for it. Okay.
This leads to arguments, friction, and eventually the poison of contempt.
So if you have contempt for your partner, that's the sign the relationship has, if it's not dead already, it will be soon. And you're carrying the carcass of your partner on your back from that point forward. Not a good program. They're smelling. They become smelly. It doesn't really help.
And it's
Okay.
not, and it's not pheromones.
It's not, yes. The smell then becomes a little bit overpowering. Okay.
Unbalanced emotions and thoughts drive intensity, competition, and opposites attract options. Arguing, unilateral decision-making, and friction about past agreements promotes separation and distance. Falling in love with our security blanket guarantees that our defenses will grow and eventually lead to contempt.
So we look at our partner as, when we fall in love, we look at them as they're our savior, they're our security blanket. They're going to fix me so I'll be more successful. That's the real problem, the real program there. Okay.
Any questions on that level?
I think we got that one down.
Okay. Falling in love idealistically. Affirmation chemistry based on cohesion. Idealized falling in love is where we fall in love with our idea of how they will perfectly support us.
How many people have been in relationships where you finally realize that the other person wasn't the perfect person you thought they were? Anybody reach that point? Yes. And that is a realization that, oh my gosh, there's going to be a lot of work to do in this relationship, and we have to figure out a way to manage this much better than we're doing right now. Okay.
Initially, we believe that our aspirations and ideals being similar will lead to great partnership. We soon realize that having different ways of doing things or different priorities always leads to delays or a lack of creative engagement.
So have you ever been in a relationship and you're planning something with your partner and they keep wanting to plan it over and over and over again, and we never seem to actually do it? Anybody been in that situation? It's like we can't seem to get off base one, we can't seem to move forward in the project. That tells you we're either scared of being co-creative together, or it also tells us that we don't have tools for sharing ourselves and being seen by the other partner. And usually it's a lack of intimacy and vulnerability that is at the core of it. Okay.
While we imagined that having congruent feelings and emotions would lead to passionate expression, we are confronted with the reality that our hopes are not always possible.
Yes, and it's just so weird because we want to hope, we live on the idea that we have to have hope about our relationship. Anybody know what I'm talking about? When you get to a place where you can't hope anymore, you give up. And so we want to be able to hope. But I'm going to say to you, we need to know and we need to learn what we need to do to reestablish that hope. We have to be able to grow in many ways, and hope without growth doesn't continue. Okay.
It goes in circles.
It does, or it gets stuck.
This does awaken us to the fact that having creative alignment makes our relationships easier, but we are unwilling to commit ourselves to full creative compatibility. This amplifies projections and promotes unfair comparisons, revealing our anxiety and enmeshment.
So the third level is always an enmeshment program, whereas the second level is always a really separation program. So if you think about it, we're indecisive on the first level. We're on the second level, we're competitive. And on the third level, we're trying to be cooperative, but we don't know how to cooperate together. So we're constantly stepping on each other's toes and not letting the thing emerge. And that's because we believe we should be making progress, but we don't know how to do it. Okay.
Hey, Larry,
Yes.
I had to giggle a little bit when you said, have you ever expected your partner to be perfect and you found out that they weren't? And I had to giggle because that's like the first 2 years of my marriage, but I was actually finding out that I wasn't. all I thought I was cracked up to be. It was quite enlightening.
Yes, you can idolize yourself as well as your partner, and you can idolize what you could do in a relationship, and then find yourself not being able to live up to your own expectations. That's probably what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yep. And also, then trying to navigate to a path of growth
Yes.
with each other. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So by the way, on this level, there's so much more here we could talk about, because this is where most of you guys are operating at. And just to let you know, it's the major problem right now in the world. People don't know how to honor other people's truth and be able to relate it to a larger possibility. So we don't know how to move forward together. That's the biggest problem here. And we're in that with our politics. We're in that with our, in our world with the global warming stuff. There's so many different areas that it's coming out right now. Okay.
This amplifies projections and promotes unfair comparisons, revealing our anxiety and enmeshment. We quickly learn how acceptance can lead to repulsion and personality self-rejection as we transition to our authenticity.
When you start really seeing how personality self-rejection is like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to reduce my sense of self-importance so I can be more balanced in relation to others. That's a real wake-up call that you're ready to move on out of a personality perspective into a creative self perspective. If you've been doubting, if you've been denying that you have the power just to be yourself, and that you're just bored, silly, doing personality things like trying to maintain your safety, security, or your self-importance, those are the basic mandates of your personality system. But that's a programmed development process. It's not who you are. That's what you've done to prepare yourself to be more conscious. And that's great. Now you can be more conscious. Let's move on to the next step. But to do that, you have to know that the way I set up my personality is no longer serving me. And I need to take it out of the driver's seat and put my creative self in the driver's seat so I can move forward in a way that works. Okay.
Unbalanced feelings and emotions drive anxiety, projections, and idealized choices. Falling in love with an idealized lack of progress, inability to work together, and pain at not being seen promote insulation and a fear of being our creative greatness.
See, so people at this stage know there's something bigger about who they are, but they're not sure what that is. And they have to step into the greatness of who they are as a creative being. Okay.
Falling in love with an idealized version of a partner taking care of us guarantees that our enmeshment will be enhanced.
Yes, because what we're doing there is we're giving ourselves over to them. And even if they're doing the same with us, we're creating a perfect trap so that neither one of us survive, which is not good. It means we have to crash and burn, and then we have to rebuild ourselves based on our creative selves. One more thing I'll say here is that this is a stage where now people are starting to look at the compatibility factors and start make sense that, yes, we really can be choosing people that are more like us. If they have the same defense, if they have the same creative energies, there's an enhanced way of being with those people, and they see us and there's no work in being with them. Wow, why aren't we choosing that? That would be a good thing. Okay. I think we have to take a break pretty soon, but we'll do one more.
Engaging multiple love levels, layering codependence traps. Each dimension has the possibility to affirm or deny our creative nature. Life or beauty, light or truth, love or goodness are all ways we affirm our creativity. Excitement, intensity, and anxiety are all dualistic, codependent attractions indicating our compromises. Every time we fall in love, one or more of these compromises are denying our creative intent, content, or context. It also means that we are squandering our life energy, personal time, and ability to passionately affirm our creative context. Compromises amplify personality limitations and programming that support conditioning, defenses, and idealization.
Those are the three limitations or false beliefs in our system that we've taken on that we have to clear out. It's all our baggage.
When we clear these compromises and unify our creative nature, we then have the ability to be in a state of radiant, self-unifying love, which allows us to choose love independent of what it will do for us.
So what most people in our personality love level, they're using love to get. They're using love to make a point. They're using love to manage their partners. They're using love to fulfill their partner's needs. But that's not the highest form of love. That is a limited form of love because we're trying to learn to put other people first. And that is a good thing because the more we do that, the more we start realizing that we have a gift and we have a contribution to make to the world. And when we do that, we start really opening up ourselves to receive the benefits of the universe as well. Okay.
It permits conscious co-creative relationships. In order to keep partners, we develop strategies to get them to depend on us, attempting covert or overt control.
The biggest problem in all relationships is the idea that we should control the relationship. The biggest opportunity for us is to be out of control in relationships. By the time we get to our creativity, we know control is an illusion. We are creating relationships that are flowing, and we're creating them as we go, and we're flowing with the process, and we have no ability to really predict how everything's going to turn out, and that's okay. That's part of the joy of it. Okay.
We view our needs as opportunities for love transactions, building justifications for caretaking. Falling in love is used as a reason to accept codependent compromises, when it in fact demonstrates its limitations.
Because the more we are choosing codependent relationships, the less we're getting served or less we're being present with people. We're just checked out. We're just connected. Okay, let's take a break right now.
Larry, can I ask a question really quick? This is
Sure.
Rhonda.
Yeah.
So can you just contrast falling in love and being out of control?
Yes. I had a whole slide in this in the beginning, Rhonda, so you can go back to that. I know you weren't here probably for that part.
No, I was there. It's just that they sound similar when you talk about like falling is like you're at the effect of, but then out of control also kind of feels like you're at the effect of.
Yes, and I'm going to say they're the same thing in effect, but because the illusion is that we have control, but really what we have is a bunch of assumptions, a lot of beliefs, and some hopes, dreams, and aspirations about how it's going to go. We tend to throw ourselves into things thinking we have more control than we actually do, and we believe it, and then that creates the situation where when we meet somebody that is going to take us beyond our limit of love, we're in new territory. We're not knowing how to respond to that. And it's usually because we don't know how to respond to ourselves. We don't know how to respond in our own creative nature. So when a person shows up and we want to show up, we're learning on the fly. We're learning in that moment. And that is being out of control. Does that make sense to you now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I want to take about 7-minute break here so we can recover and regather ourselves, and people can formulate their questions and eat something and take a little bit of a break. We're planning to come back, and we have about 4 slides, and then we have a process, and then we're just going to wrap it up after that. So that's what's going on right now. So let's do that. Okay, we're back. So for some people, this may be a really interesting slide, because if you look on the dimensions here, I give you the answers for each of the levels that we just talked about, because all of that stuff I've been talking about has been incredibly difficult for a lot of people, because they're approaching it in an unbalanced way, and they've got these problems that they're trying to solve in the relationships they're in. But one of the problems going on is that when you're unbalanced, you're attracting other unbalanced people in on that same level. Now, they may be opposite, or they may be your parent version, or they may be your idealized version of them. But you know what? They're at least relatively saying they're at least operating on the same level of personality development. So that is helpful in some ways, because at least you're not feeling like they aren't relating to you. The problem is that they don't have the answer and you don't have the answer. And so you're both looking at each other and going, what do you do? What do you do? So one of the things you'll see here is the 3 keys I give you are what you actually do, what you actually learn. If you learn these things and you engage these things in this way, you'll be out of these imbalances that are causing all these distortions. And that would make it so much easier for you to have better choices show up in your life. Okay, Sandy?
Love, growth, consciousness. Seeing the limitations of personality love. When we are only operating in one dimension, our attraction frameworks constrain our options, so we only see people who are compromised in similar ways. Instinctive frameworks generate unsafe parental substitutes. Intellectual frameworks generate false security and defensively polarized partners. Idealized frameworks generate individuals testing their self-importance by demanding that others conform to them. The traps of outer beauty, outer success, and the illusion of goodness come at the cost of creative autonomy, intimacy, and mutual growth. The more we accept our creative nature, the greater flexibility we manifest in our capacity to love others. This growth is actually sourced by taking responsibility for our expression on all levels, which expands our consciousness.
So all levels, meaning the instinctive, the intellectual, and the idealistic. Okay.
Being able to see beyond our personality limitations opens the door to greater harmony and alignment. So 3 keys. Dimension 1, creative life energy and beauty exploration versus attachments, imprinting, and conditioning.
So 1 is a real fixed way of externalizing what we want by, oh, this woman has to have blonde hair. You have this idea that there's a person that looks a certain way that's going to be my best partner. That's a very unconscious way of going about things. You should really have preferences. And if you had preferences and you could see the inner beauty of people, that would keep the relationship a long-term thing, not a short-term thing. Okay, go ahead. Second one.
Dimension 2, light wisdom integration, producing truth by accepting differences versus defensive positions, opposition, and separation.
So what we're learning on dimension 2 is we're learning how to accept differences. It's the core issue of the core lesson of the whole thing. If you are a different person than me, I'm not going to try to make you like me. I'm not going to compare you like me. I'm not going to make you respond to me. I'm not going to think that that's the right way to be. Now, if we were in relationships and I allowed other people to be who they are and they allowed me to be who I am, it would be really freeing. It would be open. But do we do that? No, because of our personality fears. our personality desires, our need for feeling confirmed by the partner and being seen by the partner, they limit that. So if we don't want to do more defensiveness, because that means that we're reducing our intelligence. The more positions you take, the less intelligence you can mobilize in yourself. Everybody get that? And then therefore, the more people go into hierarchies where they think they know better than other people and they just tell people what to do. And if the other people don't do it, they fire them, that kind of stuff. That is ridiculously bad type of relationship. Okay.
And dimension 3, loving similarities, balanced autonomy and intimacy versus projections and idealization.
So this whole idea that we have uncomfortableness with people that are similar to us is because we're afraid of enmeshment. And the ironic thing is we're already in enmeshment when we're thinking that. That's the thing that's so bizarre to me. But anyway, the point I'm trying to say is enmeshment is let me just say this, uncomfortable similarities is an upper boundary limit. That means we can't perceive where things will go if it gets that good. How many people have been in situations where it got too good for you and you had to shut it down? Anybody done that? Well, that's an indication that you're in the idealization level there. It means that there is a goodness in similarities. And when the similarities are there, we can get aligned easier. We can work together. But if we can work together and we can co-create together, then now we don't have any excuses for not doing it. We have to be more accountable to each other and to ourselves. That's very scary to step into that kind of creative space. And that's what people fear there. So that's why they fall into the trap of projections and idealization. I don't want to be doing this, and this is not my problem, it's your problem. That's a projection. So if your fears get projected on the partner, you don't have to be responsible for those fears. Everybody know what I'm talking about? You can say, oh, it's really their problem. Oh, so no one's owning it's whose problem it is the real issue. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, well, I guess we're good. I guess everybody here knows what we're talking about.
I'll chime in.
Okay.
This is Kayla.
Yeah, Kayla.
So let's say you've made a projection and you don't how would one go about fixing that?
You'd own it. So
Own it.
So I could project on you, Kayla. I could say, oh, right now, I think maybe you're a little idealized, Kayla.
Mhm.
That's a projection I'm making on you.
Mhm.
I could also say, oh, you know what? I probably am idealizing you and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to acknowledge that up front, that I have this thought that you're more idealized than I would like.
Mhm.
Anyway, the point is that's a judgment I own. So it's a judgment I'm not making on you, but I'm also giving room for the fact that you don't have to be that way and you don't have to act it out. And I don't have to expect that from you. And therefore I can say, probably the source of that judgment is me. I'm probably idolizing myself more than I realize. So that would be the truth of it. Do you see my point about that?
Kind of. So you would own that you were projecting and idealizing.
And then I'd own that the source of that is probably me.
Yeah.
It was probably my idealization that was being projected on you.
Okay.
You see how that takes the pressure off everything?
I do. I just in my effort to be right and whatever, I'm kind of just it's so hard.
Yes, but you know what? You know what the ironic is? You don't have to say that you are that. You just need to say that it may be true that you're that.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you room to grow into it. And over time, you could probably see how everybody could see how we're all these things. And at many times more than we realize. But the point I'm trying to say is we're used to sticking ourselves in one position, believing that's all we are. No, we take many positions. We move around a lot more than we realize. Let's investigate that. Let's give ourselves more fluidity, more flexibility, more possibility. Just to appreciate the dimensions of us. We all have many dimensions. So you could say, I could also say to you, Kayla, I really have a commitment to be truthful, and I may go overboard at times in what I think is true. But the thing is that way I can listen into myself, and by speaking it, I'll know my own truth and the degree it is. So you may have to tolerate me and my truth telling in certain situations, but at least you know I'm telling you what I think all the time. You might like that. Why? Because then you're not always trying to wonder what's going on with Larry. You get my point there?
Yeah, that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, well, right now you probably have a lot of guys around you that you're not sure what's going on with them, because they're not acknowledging what's happening with them or how they're changing or moving. And that is always going to be, challenging for you because you're trying to inspire people to grow. Okay. Does that make sense, Kayla?
Yeah. When you say like I'm trying to inspire people to grow, what do you mean? Like,
well, you're a creative person. You're always trying to bring out the best in people, the best options, the best possibilities, the most truthful approach. So one of the things about this is, if I was being more truthful and you got that at a fundamental level, I was honest with you, you'd relax more.
yeah.
You would relax. I don't know if you've been around very many men that you've relaxed with, So that's what I'm saying is you're committed to knowing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you're committed to people being authentic. That's because you're an inventor as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Kayla, for that.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla.
Yeah.
So moving ahead, Sandy.
Radiant Self Unifying Love initiates a shift to unified attractions. When we shift into loving ourselves as creative beings, it frees us from dualistic personality attractions, such as excitement, intensity, and anxiety.
By the way, those are all attractions because even with anxiety, we like people's anxiety if we can use it, manage it, manipulate it, or take care of a person. We know that they need us, don't you think? And in a lot of relationships, knowing that you're needed is a really big safety thing. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So my point I'm trying to say here is it's a dualistic attraction because it's a comparison going on between my version of anxiety and your version of anxiety. Well, my version of anxiety is a lot less than your version of anxiety, but I see that your version of anxiety can be attractive to me because now I'm in control of you more, because I'll be more present than you will be. Isn't that interesting? Like excitement's the same way. It's a dualistic thing because if I'm more excited than you, I'm more out of balance and I can't see things as much as you. But if I'm less excited than you, I'm more in control. Isn't that amazing how the attraction becomes about control on all of these? And intensity is the same way. If I'm intense, I'm driven, I'm in such a focused thing, I'm not really looking at all the data, I've got tunnel vision. And people could be doing all kinds of things to me and I wouldn't even know it. Isn't that amazing? So my point is these dualistic codependent attractions are not what they're cracked up to be. There are ways we deny our power because we're all capable beings, but we're defining ourselves in terms of our fears. We're all saying, oh, I need excitement, I need intensity, I need anxiety. Then it puts us in a comparison thing with other people. And then we try to control them by controlling our states. That's what goes on. But here's what we're saying. We can shift out of this mode completely. And if we're in our creative self, we would. Okay, go ahead, Sandy.
All the other dualistic attractions, such as strength versus innocence and acceptance versus personality self-rejection, where we love the bad boys and bad girls.
So by the way, personality self-rejection is where you get bored and you either become the bad girl or bad boy to experience not being placed in a glorified or perfect way. There are a lot of people that put themselves in that situation. Or on the other hand, they're attracted to those people because what? They've been too goody two shoes and they need to get that stuff knocked off them a little bit, get some dust in their clothes, get dirty a little bit. And in that situation, you can notice, again, there's this dualistic thing. Where am I compared to where the other person is? And there's an attraction. Whenever I'm denying something in myself, I'm always attracted to that. So in this situation, if I'm a bad boy, I'm attracting the good girls. If I'm a good girl, then I'm attracting the bad boys. You see, you get my point? And we're using that to feel more confident about our choices. That's all we're doing. Anyway, going back to the point, I also gave you another one example here, strength versus innocence. Innocence is the more feminine strength. And it's also an ability to look at something anew. And strength is the ability to kind of persevere through a situation and just do it. So there are two different forms of strength in that way. So if a person didn't consider themselves persevering, they would be attracted to somebody who was doing strength or persevering. If a person that's strong would say, oh, I want somebody that's innocent because they would see me in my potential. Well, that's great. So, that's how these attractions are dualistic. Okay, go ahead.
So all other dualistic attractions are anchored in one partner who projects the opposite on the other.
Yep.
Radiant Self Unifying Love is based on the unified attractions of autonomous aliveness, intimate vulnerability, and creative responsiveness. In these attractions, we share the connection mutually, no matter how much more one person is doing than the other.
So here's the thing. If I'm doing autonomous aliveness and I have a partner doing autonomous aliveness, there's no way to compare and there's no competition there. We're both feeling the attraction. We're both feeling the power of it. And we're both feeling how it's helping us to align to where we're trying to go together. Now that's an externalized unified attraction. The same is true with intimate vulnerability. Intimate vulnerability is the ability to be open and admit all the challenges we have. And in that possibility, you see your strength. You see the strength in being vulnerable. And you see the possibilities in being vulnerable. And therefore, you can move forward in big jumps from that position. And creative responsiveness is if I love myself and I'm with a person who has the same compatibility factors as me, my responsiveness and my love of myself means I see and honor the nature of the other person. I'm going to bring them out no matter what. They're not even going to realize that I'm bringing them out because they're going to move with that. That's what we want to have more in our relationships, is the ability to move together and not be so, I want to say, interpersonally judgmental about like what we're doing and how they're doing it and all the details of that. The details don't matter really. Okay, Any questions about that?
When we are activating unified attractions, it reflects that we accept ourselves as creative beings. It is through creative responsiveness that we come to see and acknowledge both our similarities and differences in our unique connection. Personality attractions are dualistic and separative because they cannot be shared simultaneously. Conscious attractions are unified. For example, autonomous aliveness, intimate vulnerability, and creative responsiveness. In Radiant Self Unifying Love, by fully being and seeing each other, we choose partners who most easily co-create and align with us.
Beautiful. So for the people that are not blown out by now, which there may be a few people here that are still available, here is the summary chart of the whole thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into it. I'm just going to talk about one thing here that Sandy has told me is a mystery, an enigma, a challenge. And you'll notice here on this chart, it has the 3 levels and it has all the forms of love on each level. And the personality levels are the first 3 levels. And then the creative level is the top level. Now, if you notice, on instinctive level, it's all about sex. Isn't that great? It's simple, all about sex. And on the intellectual level, it's all about conditional forms of exchange of love. And on the 3rd level, it's all about aspirations or ideas of love. And if you want to go someplace, go to the romance novels and you'll see this ad infinitum, infinite love. I'm going to love you no matter what you do to me. And no matter what happens, I'm still going to love you. And eternal love. I don't care how long it takes. We'll be here for 50 years waiting for you at this doorstep, and then
Not only that, we'll be together in the next life.
Yes, exactly. There will be many lives. So the point is love is glamour is a little bit more difficult for some people to put their finger on. And what it is, it's the love of an idea of another person, because it's the view that you match me and you see me and only you are the special one for me. And so you're my key to nirvana. You're my key to everything. And everything that is going to happen is because I'm with you. Everybody everybody seen that part? You seen that story? That's love is glamour. So, and then the beautiful thing is we don't have to live in that world. We could go to a higher level here and talk about aliveness and life leading to love, which is being seen, or wisdom or light integration, which is an invitation to people to engage us on a creative level. And then there's also Radiant Self Unifying Love, which is the presence of it. It's not about doing, it's just about being. And it's not about promises, it's about just showing up. Everybody kind of get the picture how it's much bigger than the rest. All the rest of these are on the lower levels are subsumed in the higher expressions. So anyway, so I just want to say that for the people that need to know, there are feminine expressions and masculine expressions, and merged both masculine and feminine expressions in that. And all our charts kind of go that way and show people that. So you can,
Larry,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead with your comment.
No, so you can use this as a map. This is just a map to explore the territory. How much of your relationships have you done these various types of love, or you've been caught up in various patterns here? And it's okay, because it's good to have all of these lower level lessons, because without the lower level lessons, you can't appreciate the higher level possibilities. Did you get what I just said? We're not here to judge how long we've done 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of these things. It doesn't matter. What they do is they teach us that's not the path for me. That's not the way I'm going to move forward. I get stuck in on these situations, and I don't grow whenever I get caught in these. And so what you have to do is say, wait a minute, I've done enough of that. I'm going to move up the stage and try something better. And every time we try something better, it opens us up to higher possibilities. And that's what we're doing here. We're climbing the ladder so that we can be more complete and fulfilled in our way of being in ourselves and love ourselves, so that our capacity to love others is infinite. That would be my suggestion. Okay. And if you did that, then there wouldn't be any limitation to how you bring people into your life. There wouldn't be any limitation to the quality of people you invite to your life. That is the upside of that whole process. Okay.
Larry, can we go back to the last slide for just a second?
Okay.
So I really appreciated and liked your explanation of what it means, love as glamour. So you know that movie, Jerry Maguire, where she says, "You complete me"? Is that where this fits in?
No, you complete me is quid pro quo love.
Okay.
You complete me is more intellectual. It's like you are the other side of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that we're taking positions, and we have half of us online and the other half of, is on the other side. And we're trying to make those merge. And of course, we're too stubborn and separate to do that. So it's putting a round peg through a square hole. And of course, it's not going to work.
So
That level,
glamour.
that level, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sandy.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
I was going to say that level, I think, is more Last of the Mohicans, wherever you go, I will find you. That's
Yes, that is more appropriate. Yeah, thank you.
So is it kind of like "you're perfect for me," which is the idealization part? This is where you suddenly find out that they're not perfect for you at some point?
Yeah, but Sandy, we don't really know them. Here's the problem on the glamour side. We're just imagining that we know people. We don't really knowing them. That's why they're special to us. If we actually knew them, we'd be running the other way. We'd really be running as fast as we could. But because
Amen, brother.
Usually when that is going on, we don't see anything about the problems. We see nothing about the problems. So we're not making a full assessment, a clear assessment of whether or not we can deal with it or not. We're only seeing the best parts of them in their most, I want to say, positive presentation. And that's why they're special to us. But it's a projection. It's not the reality.
So, and I appreciate that. And so if this is "wherever you go, I will find you," isn't that more like love as stalking rather than love as grammar?
Oh, that's funny.
Eternal love, infinite love.
Yeah. Well, it is "wherever you go, I will find you" is kind of this a combination of infinite love and eternal love.
Uh-huh.
And that's where glamour shows up.
Gotcha.
So you see how that works. It's like not just one way of loving is good enough for us. I'll get all these levels of love combined, and then maybe that'll be good enough for us. And of course, the thing that we don't realize is whenever we're projecting on another person how they must be to satisfy us, it's a disaster in progress. It's in slow motion, and it will crush you like a bug. Okay, just give yourself a little time for that to occur. Okay, so everybody clear about that? Don't do that. That's
Thanks.
not the game plan. Okay, I don't like bug crushing. Okay, so
Larry, Rhonda has something, I think.
yeah, Rhonda.
Yeah, I have a question about, I think it's on the second level. When you're talking about, I'm just trying to kind of put it all together. So like you're stuck at a, like in that second dimension, and which according to this chart would be protective love, quid pro quo, directive love.
Yes.
And there's where it's like where you're talking about truth, and there's this attachment to being.
Well, actually, we're really being clear. We're talking about the avoidance of truth.
Okay.
Because
So-
when we're in our defenses, we can't confront the truth. We're in our positions. So one of the things about this is always about conditions. You love me if I do this for you, and you'll love me if I do that for you. And we're exchanging. First of all, protective love is I will protect you because I love you, but it's, you know, ka-ching, ka-ching, the little meters going, right? And then of course, but I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure everything's okay for you. Ka-ching, ka-ching. And that's directive love. And then when you put them together, it's quid pro quo. You do this for me and I do this for you. So there's always a transactional exchange there. That's what you're doing.
So how does intimate vulnerability bring you out of that place?
Yes. Well, it's not, it's really intimate vulnerability, by the way, is only the very end of that process and at the very beginning of the next level. Just to let you know, but intimate vulnerability is saying, oh, I don't need to have outer strength and power. My real power is my inner creative knowing. My real power is my vulnerability and the limitations I've placed on myself, I'm taking off of myself so I can flow. And in that situation, I become all powerful, not just powerful in this one situation, because the feminine is more powerful than the masculine, right? Right, Rhonda? Okay, good. Just want to make sure. So remember, it's about inclusion, right? Whoever holds the biggest ground wins. Okay, I'm kind of joking with you here, but I'm pointing out to you that it's really about the space of things, and vulnerability is about the space of things. It's the feminine side of the space of things. Okay, and an intimate vulnerability is double whammy, double strength, mystery provoking feminine. Okay, and of course,
so if I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm like, I feel myself in a charge, I feel myself becoming defensive or getting attached to whatever my point of view is, right? I feel myself becoming positional and wanting
you're
to
going into your masculine side.
Okay.
You're defining, you could be doing this on an emotional basis or an intellectual basis, but you're taking a position.
Right.
That position is limiting your intelligence. You don't see the big picture anymore. You're seeing only the steps that position supports.
So then the way out of that, and then that
The
puts
way
me-
out of that is to see the
Sure.
paradox of all the possibilities is a step out of a unified position into a step out of a partial position into a unified position where you have many ways of embracing yourself and holding yourself, and you're just engaging wisdom. You can start by engaging the 3 different intelligences each person has. That's how you start to bring your wisdom out. But then ultimately, it's also about how I engage my creativity with your creativity. So when I'm showing up and I'm doing this conversation right now in a compassionate way with you, and then I'm give you a little zinger visionary uplift program, then I can use your energies to meet you and see you in your own form, and you could be affirmed there, right? That's using
I'm experiencing it like we're in a place of neutrality, and then I start to create contraction because I get attached or positional, and then the way out of that is
to regain some space,
regain this space,
or to take ownership. Like, I don't need to be in this position. This position is limited, but I'm not. It's like you declaring your space. You declaring, remember that song, I'm a woman? Okay, you got to start singing. Sing, my friend. You'll
careful. You don't want to put that out there, Larry.
Call
How come you
Sandy.
never say that to me?
Call up Sandy. Sandy will sing with you, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are we complete with that? Okay. There's one, this is a final slide. I'm
Sharing our creative being. Love is the acceptance and embrace of aliveness, wisdom, and awareness. Our experience of love is either one that completes us internally or one where we need others to validate us. When we need others to validate us, it is personality love. Personality love denies aliveness, wisdom, and awareness, and even consciousness. When we are being ourselves and create a common neutral ground, it is in the reflection of the common ground that we experience our radiant self-unifying love. This means love is a transformative element that changes how we see ourselves. Most of all, it is our commitment to love that makes the experience of love possible. Wherever we deny love, in effect, we discount and deny our ability to be with others. We need to be present with ourselves and demonstrate a commitment to the fulfillment of possibilities for us to be loving with others. When we recognize the power of love, we seek to expand it. Conscious love is not an activity, attachment, a security exchange, or a type of worship. We prefer to think of personality love as types of romance that ultimately culminate in radiant self-unifying love.
Yeah, just for the people that wanted to know, I put the numbers of the woman and the man in there. Okay, moving ahead, we're going to do our guided imagery and then do a completion process. This guided imagery is going to be about 7 minutes long or so, and it's just about taking what we've been thinking about and talking about and kind of get it in the body. And for the people that are new to this, we just ask you to turn off your screens and get comfortable with yourselves and in any way you want. And you can choose to follow the process or not. We're not here to tell you what to do. The goal here is just to explore something and to tune into your own inner knowing about it. Okay. Why don't you take a couple deep breaths? And you can tune into your body's energy. Notice how easy or difficult it is to summon or direct your body's energy at will. Just notice how difficult it is to connect your sensations to your feelings. So you can be flexible in acknowledging your direction. Just notice if your warmth of your body is visible to you from the inside out. Imagine having a better connection between your sensations and feelings, so you can feel your body aliveness rather than excitement. If you feel locked into any excitement, just consider exploring new ways of engaging others, so you can break out of any conditioning you might have. Imagine exercising your aliveness muscle by moving your will, your energy, your intent through your body. Allow yourself to take some risk in exploring your creative nature by expressing yourself. Perhaps you feel greater growth and autonomy as you activate these inner muscles. This is much better than the inertia and fantasy building of excitement, where loneliness and isolation are the consolation prize. It's time now to connect to your mind. How easy it is for you to think beyond personal positions and engage in paradox and unity thinking. Perhaps you consider this thinking outside of your box. To explore this possibility, how well are you integrated to your emotions and thoughts? You'll need both to work together to think in larger ways. Do you need structure and precision, or openness and undefined qualities to articulate your truth? How much do you argue with yourself about what you believe? Just notice if there's inner conflict. And if so, examine whether this state of intensity is helping you define clear differences and inform others about those differences. If you're able to breathe in this moment and release this tension, perhaps you can employ mutual wisdom and learning. This would allow you to not be as separate. Consider how well you distinguish your boundaries from others, allowing you to choose to be more inclusive. This indicates moving from a state of independence to autonomy and balance. And now we're going to go to the last phase here. Just exploring your heart space. Allow yourself to be open and available. Instead of seeking any enmeshment, where we want our partner to adapt to us, how about acknowledging our own passion? And how we would express ourselves fully in this moment. This requires the unification of our feelings and emotions. It usually means we have some intuitive, flowing, imaginative ways of seeing possibilities. Rather than defining ourselves in terms of another, let us affirm our creative greatness and determine if our choices are in alignment with them. Otherwise, our unconscious personality desire for self-importance can lead us to idealizing ourselves and others. Instead, just explore your natural goodness, your natural creative greatness. Examine how much you can acknowledge your desires that you want an equal partner. Examine how giving yourself space allows you to be abundant in your ability to create space with others. And now I'm going to ask you to come back to the group. Slowly stretch your arms and legs and open your eyes when ready. Bring yourself to full alertness where your natural aliveness sparkles. As you come into energetic connection with yourself, rebalance your attention and direct some of the energy to the group. And you can please turn on your screens. And before we move on here, just take a moment to check in. Did anybody have anything they wanted to share about that process? Any questions they had coming up with it?
I have a question.
Sure. Sarah.
Yeah, it's been interesting looking at the 3 different levels and then really feeling them in that process. And what I noticed is that most of the things that I'm still doing are on the idealized level, I'd say. And when I feel into my feelings and emotions, like I feel like my sensations and feelings are quite balanced and my emotions and thoughts have a relationship, but my feelings and emotions are hardest to integrate, I guess. And that's where in that process I felt the most like depth or like happenings, like happening and goings on. And so I'm wondering about the actual mechanics of just like sitting with that or being with that and how I'm supposed to move through that, because the other 2 layers don't seem as alive.
So yes. So first of all, just want to let you know, you probably realize that the other 2 levels are somewhat dead ends the way they were constructed, and you're trying to bring more life to them. Because when I see you, I know that you have aliveness in you. I also know that you have wisdom. So it's not that it's the old way of doing things are dead. The new way of doing things are more balanced. Now, in order to move into the 3rd level, you have to balance those 2 levels out. So one may be more important than the other. Anytime one is more important than the other, that means the 3rd level is going to be particularly difficult to integrate. So most people in this group are in that situation, where they have either more focus on their truth or more focus on their beauty. They're either in their bodies really well and their minds are not as strong, or their minds are super strong and they're not in their bodies. Now, that last phrase is where most people are. They're mostly in their minds more than their bodies in our society, because we don't pay attention to our bodies very well. Now, just going back to the point, if you're trying to visualize balancing those out, the connection point is the feelings and the emotions. Remember, the feelings and the emotions are both subjective realities that are feminine. Okay, so they merge really well, but you have to remember that the emotions are in time and the feelings are in the present. So if you're not in the present, you have to bring the emotions to the present to connect to them and start there. Okay. Second thing you have to do is, if you're going to expand the context, you bring in, a conversation between your body and your mind, because the feelings represent the body and the emotions represent the mind. And they're both subjective experiences on how well you're doing in each of those areas. So the question is use that discussion to help unify you, and then get more awake to the fact that there could be some disconnect, and where is the disconnect in that situation, and how well are you being present? Like I asked you in this process, are you having flow here? If you're having flow anywhere, it's great. If you're having tension, conflict, friction in any one of these areas, then there is an imbalance there that you're projecting on the world, and you're holding on to it to begin with. So we have to first stop holding on to it, and then we have to bring it out to the world. Okay? Did that answer your question more?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? I bet that quieted the group. You nailed the question that the group had, but it brought more of an answer than they were ready for. So it was okay. Okay. So moving ahead, I have a process in the class that you might want to do at home. We're not going to do this tonight, but it's a question about looking at your relationship choices and saying, what was I caught in each one of these situations? The more you can observe and calibrate to each situation, the less you're lost in these patterns. The patterns themselves will be revealing, and then you'll be able to catch them more and more in the moment. That is what I'm hoping to encourage you to do. Okay. So we're gonna talk about the class really briefly. We're doing a class on Radiant Self Unifying Love, and it's 12 classes, and these are the titles. And I've already realized that I should change title 4 into it's really about not falling in love with personality needs. That's really what it should be. Because the earlier 3 is the negative, and I wanted to have a positive, so it should be not falling in love with personality needs is that 4th one, just to let you know, because I want to really emphasize that. But the class is different than what I've done before. I've never done a class with this sequence. I think it's more integrative, and it's quicker than some of the other classes we've done. At the same time, it'll be deeper for a lot of people because it's going to bring up a lot of how you're engaging people right now. Okay, and sometimes we're not engaging them as fully as we think we are.
Hey, Larry, are we missing a line item on that? I only saw 11 classes there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we're missing a line item there. I have it. It's in the, if you want to know the last class, it's on the
website.
It's on the website. Sorry, I must have, I got carried away trying to space them out. Looks like I spaced them out one too many.
It's all right. I just wanted to make sure people knew there were 12 classes.
Okay, there are classes, yeah.
That's the celebration class.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so also we're doing the class on Tuesday nights, and we'll start next week on the 31st, and we go into November 16th. And each class is 3 hours long. That's what our standard's been for a long time. And we're charging $395 for the class. If you have special circumstances, you should just talk to Sandy. We'll see what we can do. And I should also emphasize for you that we do the classes and we want you to participate, but you're not obligated to participate. No one is obligated to do anything they don't want to do. And the other thing is, you don't have to be there in the night, because we will send you the classes as they're complete, so you can do them on your own time, in your own way, however would work for you. Some of the people, like, Sarah in New Zealand and all this, I'm sure the hours are challenging to schedule across the time zones. So it's quite understandable how different people will do things in different ways. But I think it's a question of, I want you to be around just because I want to be able to talk to you and see your faces and engage with people. And it makes the class a better class when we have a lot more questions. So, anybody have any questions? Anybody have any comments about this class tonight? Because, we're always looking for feedback. And it's really beautiful to get some feedback.
Hey, Larry,
Yeah.
you were talking about not necessarily being in the class and like listening to the recordings.
Yeah.
How do you do the processes in the class if that's the situation?
Well, one of the things that people do is that they team up with people in the class and they do the processes offline with their partners that they know in the class. That's been a big thing that people have done. And sometimes you just, if you don't have that opportunity, find a friend like Sarah sitting with a person, just grab him and say, just grab him and say, here we go. I need you to do this process with me. And you could be surprised, but it'll be a revealing discovery. These discussions are not usually tremendously long unless you want to make them long. And it could provoke a conversation that goes really deep. And that is really beautiful because that's what expands our relationships, is getting something out that we never considered telling our partner, and sharing it is a way to bond with them. So it's very nice to try that out.
Or Katrina, you could grab the FedEx driver,
Yes.
make him come in and have a conversation about
Yes.
relationships.
Since you like those FedEx drivers, Katrina, I think that's a great idea.
That could be fun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you never know where you can find a partner here and there.
I notice in the common neutral ground that the conversation about radiant self-unifying love feels different. It feels very fluid. There's a lot of possibility in the field, a lot of music or sound.
Yes.
I was just wondering if you could talk about that a bit.
Okay. So, what Angela's talking about is, this is a topic that we have a lot of ideas about. When we talk about love, we bring our own music, we bring our own history, we bring it's funny, a lot of couples have music on their own, and they have their experience of that relationship, and where the relationship really went well, that was really great, but where it didn't really know how to resolve certain problems, that was the issue, and it created challenges. Partly it's because we don't know how to love ourselves that we end up beating up our partners. And so if we were in a better mood and we had more, I want to say, space for ourselves, we would probably treat each other much better. And that is the real aspirational aspect of exploring higher expressions of love, especially radiant self-unifying love. Now, I'm going to say that the reason why this class is a little bit more spacious than our regular, there was a lot of tough things we talked about tonight, but we didn't get that difficult for everybody. Some people I saw had a little bit of challenges, but the reason why it is because it's an aspirational thing for a lot of people to connect to themselves on a higher level. They want to be present with themselves. They want to show up. And this is a perfect group for which people to test out their capacity to show up. And from that standpoint, it was a nice process tonight. Now, when we just completed a class that was really deep, and in that class, it got a little bit challenging in terms of people processing through what it meant to them. It was a lot deeper. I would say to you, this class is more going to shift your context. It's going to shift the way you see yourself. It's going to shift the way you're showing up. But it's not, I would say, even though it has content, it's not really about the content. It's about your exploration of how you want to be yourself. That's really what this class is about. There's a huge element in just being your creative self, period, in this class. Now, in the common ground class we're doing on Thursday nights, I want to do a little distinction there. That class is more about a technical thing of how to avoid conflict. It's more about how do we hold space with people and let them be themselves, and how do we support them in being with us. Because a lot of you are the more conscious partners in the relationship. A lot of the people that are drawn to this work that want to learn it are the people that have to take it out and invite other people to participate with them to move them forward. Why? Because you're here because you're at the forefront. You're here because you're at the edge. You're here because you want to go beyond what you see as possible for yourself. But not everybody is up to doing that. Not everybody can do that. And so when you engage your partners in a variety of ways, you're going to be grounding it for them. You're going to show them how they can show up with you. And so there may be a lot more interpersonal work in the Thursday night class, whereas in this class, it's going to be more creating space for yourself. So there's a difference there. And I think that's what Angela is tuning into. There's a difference in the process. Every time we do a class, what I'm trying to do is mirror the process of the class. In other words, I'm trying to create the space that we're going to have in the class. And I'm using this as a fine-tuning process. I'm using this to get the tone and the structure down and see what the tempo has to be and all that. So I found out a lot from you guys tonight. And so now I know where to go, where to start with in the class. Now, on Thursday night, we'll be doing a different type of class with a different structure a little bit and a little bit of a different outcome. The goal in that class is to create more balance in yourself and to be able to create more flow between people. And so it's more interactive in that way, and it's going to have a different outcome in that way. Okay, so did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Sandy, any other input?
No, just to remind everybody that we begin next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if you have any questions about the classes or have any difficulties with registering or payment, to contact me. My email address is on the website, as well as on the emails that we send out to announce the classes. And many of you have my phone number as well. So don't hesitate to reach out whichever way is best for you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Tom, did you have anything?
I think I'm good. I think we're ready to wrap it up.
Cool. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight and to taking some time out of your busy schedules to consider this as an option. If you feel drawn to do this, I really want to invite you to participate. If it's not the right time for you, that's perfectly normal. And we always love you to spend your time coming and seeing us at other intro nights. So, and we do this, I guess I would say 6 to 9 times a year. So it's an opportunity to kind of interact with the community, the larger community. So I want to thank you all for your presence, and I'm going to say good night. Good night.